All right. So welcome, everybody. This is your last session of the day. Yay. So my name is Julie Kallenbach, and I've had many different jobs, but I was a preschool special ed teacher in the beginning of my career, taught blended, was a diagnostician, then I was a special ed supervisor, principal, and finally I was the director of early learners in Elgin U46. And after that, I worked on for the state as a consultant on their kids project, the kindergarten assessment. And now I'm a trainer for DRDP, which is the preschool version of kids. But now my next thing, because of course you can never stop, is that I'm a master cadre coach for the pyramid model. So that's where I'm coming from. I recognize some faces here that people could help me teach this session. So thank you for being here. All right, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Okay, so what we're talking about today is called scaffolded writing. It's a certain type of writing technique, a strategy that can be used with any type of curriculum because it's just one tool to help with writing. It comes from the Tools of the Mind curriculum, which is an approved curriculum for preschool. And it also, so that all stems from Vygotsky. So let's see here. Here's the learning objectives for today. We're going to talk about best practices for writing in general in early childhood. And then we'll learn about how the writing is linked to working memory and learn about and practice scaffolded writing. If we have time, I'll talk a little bit about play plans, which is another Tools of the Mind strategy that uses the scaffolded writing, but I'm not sure if we'll have the time for that. Come on. So I want to first check your level of understanding. I'm going to put up a poll. You look and see if you've never heard of it, heard it mentioned, been to a training and never tried it though. I'm using it, but wanted a refresher, or I didn't know what else to pick this time, or other. So hold on, here's the poll. If you could just click when I launch it. What's your level of understanding of scaffolded writing? Just about everybody. A couple more people to vote. I'll see if they tune in. Okay, so you can see most people here will be new at this, and some people here have tried it and are not tried it but know about it. And I know there's some people here that use it and are just here to be my helpers today. So thank you for coming to this session because it's a strategy that I've seen work. We did it in Elgin back when I was the director, and we saw phenomenal growth in students writing. So and it's interesting too, because some of the people I know that are here that use it still use it. So I'm hoping that's because they've seen the success of it. So we're going to start with writing, talking about writing, because writing is about composing. It's about coming up with an idea and putting it on a two-dimensional paper. So we know by the standards, the preschool has their standards, kindergarten has standards, and lots of times I put up the first grade ones too, because if you don't know what the standards are, sometimes you expect more out of the students than is really possible for their developmental level. One of the little takeaways I had from an article I saw was that when you're talking about writing books with kids, we often switch it to just making a book, because some kids can't write, but they can make pictures, they can make line squibbles, they can make approximations. So sometimes that takes a little pressure off the kids that say, well, I don't know how to write, let's make a book. So I'm going to start with writing continuums, because you need to know the trajectory of writing skills so that you know how to scaffold the learning up the continuum. And continuums come and are often placed in assessments. So I'm going to start with the kids assessment because kindergarten teachers are required to do this, except for the fact that the writing one is not a requirement. They do the kids assessment, but tragically, they don't do the writing. Lots of districts have added the writing measure in anyway, because it's pretty easy one to do, and they want to put some value on writing. So we know that on a continuum, you have the scribble marks or simple drawings that start. Kids start to make some letter-like shapes, or they might start to make a few letters. Then they start to write their own name. And then they move to writing words and phrases, but there could be errors. Finally, they'll start to write and compose simple sentences to communicate ideas to other. Then they go into paragraphs. The parts in yellow is a lot about phonemic awareness and phonics. So they start drawing to represent something, then they make the shapes, and then they start to make some of the sounds for the phonemes, and then letters for each sound or phoneme, and then they start to spell in chunks. So that's the process. The oval section of the kids is where we hope children enter kindergarten. The integrating middle matches the standards for end of the year for kindergarten, and integrating later, where they write and compose brief paragraphs, that's more first grade. Sometimes we have to be careful because the push down often from the grade ahead of you is telling them, no, they need to be writing 3 or 4 sentences. They need to be, if they're going to second, they should be doing 3 paragraphs. We want to pay attention to the standards and match the standards. So when we look at these assessments, we know that they've already been aligned with standards. There's a resource that when I put this in the folder at the end of our session, this is a hyperlink. If you need to look at some ideas of the progression of writing in preschool, the NACI has this really nice one too. A lot of you in preschool are using TS Gold, so their objectives match along with what the kids is looking at too, and along with what standards are. The same thing, the scribbles are marks, some controlled, mock letters, partial naming. They've got a couple measures within TS Gold, and here's where they're, making more of the invented spelling. Some of your districts are using the preschool version of KIDS, which is called the Desired Results Developmental Profile. And so it's the same thing. It looks the same as the KIDS measure for writing, but you can see KIDS starts with building, and preschool adds in some lower levels. Okay, so now I'm going to tackle a little bit about this writing versus handwriting, and it comes up all of the time because people think writing and handwriting are the same activity. So that is definitely not the same activity. Writing is about composing ideas, and handwriting is about the physical manipulation of creating the letters. So nowhere in the standards do we have anything that says anything about handwriting. Of course, we do still teach handwriting most of the time, most districts do, and it's still important, but we don't want the limiting ideas of correct handwriting to interfere with composing thoughts and getting their really great ideas on paper. So when we talk about lined paper, that's not writing. When we talk about sentence stems, that's not writing. That's not where the children are coming up with their own ideas. Tracing sentences is not writing. A lot of those are handwriting. So we all do, and I see it when my granddaughter's kindergarten too, that lots and lots of sentence stems. But what if the kids don't want to talk about what that sentence stem is? They often don't have the confidence, which is why people sometimes use the sentence stems. They don't know what to write. But I'm hoping with scaffolded writing, you can see that any words that they use, anything they want to write about is more valuable. I want to make sure I put this up and you can order this poster. A lot of times parents wonder why in preschool and kindergarten we're still doing all the scribbling and the climbing outside and playing with words. The kids really need to do all of this before they can do some handwriting and some writing. They need to build some background knowledge so they have things to write about. So what writing paper do we use? Handwriting Without Tears is often a program that's used, and they use a double-lined paper. They use a top line and a bottom line to give them some parameters. But again, Handwriting Without Tears is a handwriting program, and it's not about that process of composing ideas and transferring them to print. Mari Clay, she was the founder of Reading Recovery, and she said the lowest achieving children with writing should be using unlined paper for writing. And I know you'll go back and you'll hear differently from the grade above you, and you'll hear differently from OTs some of the time, but this is what writing experts have said works for composing ideas. We went to something that looked like this in my district when we were beginning, so the kids had some idea where to write. They had a place to put their name then, a place they would draw their picture, and then the scaffolded writing would be in the right. I've seen a lot of different versions of this as kids progress too, where the teachers put on some more cues, the more skilled the kids got. Even Fountas and Pinnell talk about using unlined paper and clear, dark markers. So I love the fact that they talk here about when kids are learning to write, they're concentrating hard to worry about the directions, movements of the letters, how the lines, and that the dotted line sometimes creates an unnecessary distraction. Also, when there's no lines, the teacher and the child can easily read without the distraction of lines, because when you read simple books to children, there are no lines. It doesn't look like books, that they see with them. Now, that's not to say that there's not a place for handwriting. There can be centers for handwriting. There's Jolly Phonics. There's times that you have a specific lesson teaching handwriting. You might be doing it in the big muscle movements, and after they learn to compose their thoughts, yes, they can start to, and let's say they've learned how to make a really nice lowercase a. They can start to practice it when they're doing their scaffolded writing, but not when they're just learning to put thoughts on paper. So I'm going to start with an example, and then we'll get into the rationale about it, because I roped my daughter and my granddaughters into this. So you be very forgiving and just think this person did a fantastic job. Okay, here, let me get that moving.
All right, everyone, now it's time for our morning message. Today's message is, today we will create a rainbow. Let's say it together. Today we will create a rainbow. Good job. Now we'll draw the lines. Today we will create a rainbow. Period. All right, Aubrey, can you help me read the lines? Today we will create a rainbow. All right. Today. T. Oopsies, we should use another color. Today. T-O-D-A-Y. Today we. W. We will. Another W. Will create. C. Create is another word for make. A. Rainbow. R. Rain. Bow. All right, can we read our message together? Today we will create a rainbow. Great job. Aubrey, can you read this by yourself?
Today we will create a symbol.
Great work.
So of course you have to say how adorable they both are. Anyway, my daughter's learning scaffolded writing because she's getting her master's in early childhood. And so we've been teaching her, and this is how my grandkids learn to write too. So any neighborhood kid I could get my hands on. So what I'd like you to do is in the chat, think about, oh wait, I wanted to finish one thought. The other thought I had was, I wanted to tell you that Aubrey was an old end of the year preschool student there. And you could see that she just did she was really working on one technique, initial sounds. So that's something we're going to get to later, is we don't overkill this message. We just teach one simple thing a day. But she was an older preschooler, and she was almost 6. So, okay, so share it again. Okay, if you could, in the chat box for yourself, what benefits from what you saw do you see for writing scaffolded messages? So think about what you saw. How could that benefit children who are learning to write, or any kind of literacy skills? I'm going to go stalk the chat. Great. I barely have to show you the rest of the PowerPoint because you're already seeing what benefits we can have by using this method. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the research and the why behind it, and then we're going to do a little practicing. So, why we do scaffolded writing. So those lines are an external mediator that helps the kids remember the sentence they composed. Working memory is one of the critical functions of executive functioning. And there's some research coming out that says working memory is probably the most indicative of successful students later. The more practice they have at working memory, the better they are with academic skills later. Also, we have that print carries a message. You said the same thing, wordness, understanding that a word matches a line, that they're short and long words, matching the length of the line, whoopsie, and words versus letters. So one of the things about the lines also is that they're a crutch when they need them. It's kind of like sign language and teaching babies sign language when they're young. When they don't need it anymore, they just drop it. It's the same with the lines. As soon as they become capable, you see them just naturally drop the lines away. So it's you can't spend time worrying about, oh, then they're never going to write on lined paper. So the purpose of modeled writing with message of the day is to develop language skills, develop phonemic awareness, practice with working memory, and learn how to do scaffolded writing, and then learning a specific literacy concept each day. So here's how it goes. This is the procedure of it. First, you plan a message using a consistent stem. You start the message off every day with the same start, because that way the repetition, they start to master some words pretty quickly. So maybe it's going to be, we are going to art, or vamos a. Some people start it with today we will. Whatever way you're going to start it is fine. It's as long as it's just the way to start. So this is usually one sentence at the beginning of when you're first teaching this. It can go to more sentences later, but If you're going to more sentences, they probably have mastered without the lines. So plan out your message. That'll go in your lesson plans. What are you going to do? And it should be something that they can do that day. We're going to art, we're going to paint, we're going to cook, something that's going to be concrete that you actually will do. So then you say the message, then the students say the message with you, draw the lines for the message, then you reread the lines with you. This is a critical step, because this is one of the ways you can check if the kids are remembering the message, that working memory. It also gets practice another time of saying it before they write it. Then you write the message with a different color marker than you use to make the lines, and then you prompt the children to reread the message. Often, message of the day is the first way we start with modeled writing. I talked a little bit earlier, if we had time, I'd get into play plans, and that's where the kids get a lot more practice. So really your first group time of the day is the ideal time to do the first morning message. A lot of times teachers have a drawing already on their board so that the kids can start to guess what the message might be. And then you do that process of writing the message for them in front of them. And again, you only teach one concept a day about writing and use a consistent stem. Okay. Here's some of the skills you will teach with scaffolded writing. And again, just one. In the beginning, you might just be thinking about teaching that the print carries the message of what our spoken words say. You said it in the chat. You can teach that lines go left to, sentences go left to right. When you start to have a return sweep, you can teach them too about reading from top to bottom. We know that a word belongs on a line, so they have to have a voice to line match. Teach the concept of sentence and punctuation, how you make letters. So if you've already introduced how you make let's say a T, whatever word you use, you can introduce that in there. Yes, let's make the T like we learned it. This is where you can introduce, yes, we have a capital letter at the beginning of our sentence, and the idea of capital and lowercase letters. We go from teaching the initial sound, the beginning, and the ending sounds, and the middle sounds in English. In Spanish, we work on the vowels and the syllables. We teach the kids that there are long and short words. Eventually, you can use an alphabet chart that has a picture with something like O for octopus, so that when they have that handy, they can start to hear it and use the letters. And you can also use this for any of your sight words that you're using. So if you decide your sight word is the, you make sure your message every day has the word the in it. All right, we're going to practice, and there's 128 of you. So I'm going to make 50 breakout rooms, so there'll be 2 or 3 of you in the room. You're going to work with that partner, introduce yourselves, talk about how you currently model writing in your classroom. If you've already done scaffolded writing, share any techniques or adaptations you've made. Then I'm going to put the steps of how you do this in the chat box. But I realize last time in my last session, I had to go and put it in the chat box in every room. So if you can, I'm going to put the screen up and maybe take a picture of the steps. Here's the steps. And I will put this simple message of the day steps in our resource folder, so you have it because in the beginning, you're really going to need it to remember the process. So if you have a phone handy, try taking a picture of this so we've got it. I will try it in the chat box. Okay. Oops. No. All right. So take turns. Each person take a turn and follow the process. If you have time, do it again, because we know that repetition is how we learn. So let me make those breakout rooms. Okay. Make sure you call me if you need me. We'll take at least 8 or 9 minutes for this. So get some good practice in.
Syllable. Then they go together, writing.
Hi, my name is Juanita Mora. The same with Emma. The teacher used the whiteboard, and she used counting the sentences, how many
lines, or how do I draw yourself? I don't know how. I don't even know how to draw, like simple stick figure or some,
Mhm.
so
So it's really building on
right.
kind of starting at the very beginning. Yeah.
So
I agree.
yeah,
Drawing is really such a critical part of this. And until they can really draw some detailed pictures, they don't have a lot in their head to put down in a sentence.
No, they don't. Mm-mm.
Or even just that I think we've lost a little bit of that with spending a lot more time modeling drawing. And, like, tell me what to draw, and, and I'll draw it for you. So, so keep sharing. I'll be back.
Okay.
Maybe 50 room.
Maybe. Yeah.
or a lot of times if I do write a sentence, then I try to draw a picture to go with.
Go around, I had all my in-person in the morning and all my remote in the afternoon. And then one kid decided to come back remote. I'm like, okay, well, I can't fit any more in my morning, so you have to come in my afternoon, and nobody wanted to switch. So then another little girl at the last minute came, and then I just got a new student.
Jamie, which district are you in?
181 in Hinsdale.
Hi, Julie.
Hi. Just drop it in.
We're loving this stuff, Julie. I mean, just hearing about Jamie has been, and I'm sorry if I'm saying this right, Mariah?
Yes, Mireya.
Okay. But just like the ideas and how much growth the students have been making with scaffolded writing is huge.
Do you use it, Jamie?
Yeah. It's funny, when I signed up for the conference or this session, I guess I'd forgotten what it was called. And as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, oh, I do that every day. So
good. It's a refresher then.
Yeah,
Maria,
it was a good refresher.
what are you in? Maria, what district?
Oh, District 200. We belong to the District 200.
Good. Well, I'm going to let you go, and Jamie, you can model first then, since you're an experienced one. So give it a try.
And I can expect that pink slip at some point. Hi.
All the way down to room 50 just to see you.
Oh man, we're doing okay.
I'm-
Yes.
Take your time, because everybody's just right around the point you are. Nice to talk to somebody from another district sometimes. So
Well, it turns out we're in the same district.
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
we've never met though.
No.
Are you
No.
grade levels?
Same grade level.
What district are you in?
That's what we were saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny.
What-
District 93.
Okay.
Carroll Stream.
So do you have that many classrooms? Well, I guess you, yeah, probably do. That's pretty big. Well, not that big.
Yeah, we have several schools. Like in my building alone, we have 4 or 5 sections of kindergarten.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you go get to know each other and try to practice.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So for those of you who are back, did you come back because you got all the work done? Okay. Hi, Carly. Okay, let me go tell them they can come on back. Okay, looks like almost everybody's coming back here. We have so many of us, but if you've got some kind of reaction or something to say, press your little reaction button and raise your hand. Or if you loved it, put a heart. Just give me some reaction with your reaction button. Mine's next to the button that says breakout rooms. And raise your hand if you have something you'd like to verbally say. With that little, you can raise it for real life, but I can't see everybody at once, so. Go on next screen. Hi, Miriam. I start to see people I know. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to answer one of the questions in the chat box. Is there a manual to explain this? Yes, it's called scaffolded writing in preschool or scaffolded writing in kindergarten. You can also look in the Tools of the Mind books because they describe it there too. I'm going to put this all in your folder so you'll have it. But that's where you can get some more of the background. Let me see if there's any other question before we. Yes, it is developmentally appropriate. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. I tried to uncover some of my play plan slides, so they might be a little off out of order, but I want to, anybody else have anything they want to say? Go ahead and put it in chat because it's really hard to talk in this kind of group. The link to the folder. Yes, I will go get that folder. The program today had a folder on every session with the resources in it. So on your agenda or that should be a link to the folder. But before we leave, I will put the link in our chat box. Okay. And that's nice because you can go to those links and see some of the other sessions. So. All right, let me get my screen back on here. Okay, now I can share. So like I said in my first session today, you all are so much better at Zoom than the presenters because you're living it and breathing it every day now. Okay. So when you need to know where each student is because they're going to be at different levels when you're scaffolding their writing. So I've got a couple tools I'll put in your folder because you've got to find that challenging but achievable spot. And when you're doing small group writing, this will help you by, so you'll know I've got which kids are at what place and how I'm going to move them to the next level. Let's see if I put them in the right order. Okay, the tools are coming later because I rearranged it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can scaffold the writing at different levels that the children are at. Here's one of the tools. You can put, and it's a Word document, so you can put their names across the top. And I put in the sequence that it goes in what the children can do so you can kind of check off and see where the kids are. This looks a little overwhelming to a lot of people. So I also made one that looks like this. Where are my students at? I'm going to put their names under, okay, they can do a nice picture, or yes, they're starting to do the lines. They're matching up the right lines with the right number of words. They're including period and punctuation. So this can start to give you a way in preschool. We have to, for the grants, you have to have individualization and differentiation in your lesson plan. So this would be a perfect little tool that you can use. So I want to show you some examples, and these are in play plans, and I will have time to go over this, I think, at the end. Play plans are what children do before they go to their centers. When we first introduced it in kindergarten, we decided, okay, we're going to call it learning plans because they don't always like play, but I'm going to still call them play plans. So usually kids in kindergarten should have a good chunk of time to choose what centers they're going to and, have self-directed play. And the recommended time in a full day kindergarten is at least 45 minutes. So if you're not having that, that might be one step. You'll have to go back to your superiors and tell them why you need more time to play. So this is what a play plan looks like. So this little child was at the level of, they can make an oral plan, but they don't really have a lot of drawing skills, you can see, and they don't have any writing skills. So the teacher modeled that the child said is going to play in blocks. So the teacher modeled the lines and wrote the words on the line. Of course, nobody's ever perfect and going to do it perfectly. So you don't always have the different color marker handy. So here's another. This is another play plan. This child is starting to make the lines, but you can see the lines don't match the message yet. So they made a plan, don't have a lot of drawing skills yet, and they can compose a sentence, I want to play fish, and they understand that they got to make some lines, but they don't quite know how to do it yet. So this is Jocelyn, and now she's got a readable sentence and a letter and a syllable for every sound. So she's got hoy voy a pintor. So she's got a nice detailed drawing, and you'll start to see this. When they have detailed drawings, they're going to be having a lot more success with writing. So it's, the developmental stage. And one of the breakout rooms I went to, we talked a little bit about that lots of kids need a lot more practice just drawing details in pictures. And, that's an important skill that you've got to leave time for. Here's one where the child's actually starting to do one-to-one correspondence of the lines to the words. He wants to go play in blocks. Yo voy a jugar bloques. And that's underwriting is a really good skill for the teacher because he can't write yet. He didn't even want to even attempt to make any letters. He doesn't understand that yet, but he does have his working memory activated and has the right amount of lines. So she just showed them, here's the grown-up way I do it. So this child, like I said, teachers start to adapt their drawing tools. And in their play plans in the beginning, she put pictures of their centers. So it would trigger for the kids where they're going. And the kids that can't draw a picture yet could just circle which icon. So this one's got details and actually starting to put some letters on the lines. I like that, looking down at a table and they got chairs and everything. As we start to think how we would scaffold this little girl, one of the things before she wrote her letters on, could she read her lines? And that might help her start to listen to some sounds. So if she could read her lines and her message still kept consistent with her lines, the teacher could then start to work through each word at a time and let her put some kind of approximation on the line. Here's a child who's still at that oral message stage, can't really draw a picture yet, but did say, circle the kitchen, and did say, I play kitchen. What the scaffolding might be for this child would be a lot more work on modeling how to draw pictures. So this one has a plan. They made an oral message and they write some letters. Still not having the one-to-one correspondence. So what could our scaffolding be for this one? we might want to really point out and celebrate the fact that she's writing some letters on her page. And then maybe we start to think about, her name was Cherish. What are some letters that she could make for her name? And then even one of the, since you often start with a consistent stem, I want to play, and where they're playing, the letter I is often pretty quickly comes on the line correctly. This one has the detailed pictures, and she knows how to write her name. Still not having a lot of letter sound connections yet, but it's coming. She's got the I on there. For her, the scaffolding might start to be an initial sound of the letters, so she at least can start to recall and reread it. This one, I want to play at the water table. She's got her first sounds. I want to play and table. And you'll see this, and you'll especially see this in Spanish. And I know, Laura, you and I have had many conversations about this. In Spanish, they want to write the syllables on separate lines. But it's part of the learning that as they learn words and, words and syllables. So this one got that, but table got all divided up. So then this particular child, the scaffolding might be talking about words versus letters, and she has no punctuation on it. So this one's got some lines, not one-to-one, but she does have some simple sounds. I want to play at the water table. Scaffolding there might work a little bit more on the working memory and getting the lines to match the message. So those are just some examples of how you scaffold. So after you've done your message of the day, you can leave it up all day. Let the kids see it, because you'll see them go up, and especially if you have the teacher center as one of your centers, they will go and practice reading that message. So it's a great way to get some other type of authentic reading in. This group of kids are, we're trying to think about how to extend their play. So after they made this pretty awesome looking cat, we just did some scaffolded writing with them, and they wanted that sign to stay up with that for the rest of the day. This is the superest kitty, and I had another word, but then they were still at a point where they could only write their names, but they loved the fact that they had a sign. This little girl was walking around the room, and she understood that lines mattered and letters go on lines, but it was some more authentic practice for her. The one on the right was a kindergarten classroom, and she had called that was the teacher center, and she called kids over, and she had them all sitting in chairs, and she walked through the whole process with them. So you can see I went to the beach. And they will do this on their own because they can, it's a technique that they can, do independently. So kind of going backwards a little bit on play planning, but since I've got time, I'm going to see if there's any questions. I'm going to go look in the chat real quick. Okay. So Michelle Lewis, who I told her she could teach this class, says she doesn't start her day without this. The play plans are often, if you're doing play plans, it's usually a small group, or you may decide on Monday, the kids are doing their play plans totally on their own, and I'm not going to scaffold that day. Tuesday, I might take a different group, so that, maybe at least once or twice a week, you do some scaffolding, but you don't have time to do every child every day. That's why if they go into some small group to write their play plans, make sure they're mixed groups, because then they can help each other. Okay. Yeah, so again, do I make the play plans every day? It's often depends. It's best if you do it every day because of the consistency, but when you have got lots of specials, or if they're all your specials on the same day, yeah. Yes, I'm going to put all the forms in the folders. I will send you the link to the folder. Okay. So when you're starting to think about play plans, it's just another way to practice scaffolded writing. Hold on here. Oops. I gotta get this out of here. Hold on, gotta go back. Okay. The beginning of play plans. Choice play is a certain time of day. So every center needs to have an icon that's consistent. And you have to do all the beginning and hard work in the beginning about teaching how to use each center and building a system of how many students are at each center and the way they choose. There's a couple different ways. I see the one on the left in preschool, you see a lot, so they can actually take a piece of Velcro. And each center has the sign where they put their name. Lots of times in kindergarten, they move to a choice board so they can see. And if you look at the middle, you can see there's a number of dots there, so they know how many kids can go to each play center. Same with the vertical one. So play plans are about their choice play. It always starts with oral planning. So you might not introduce the written play plan for a while. First, they have to learn how to use the centers. Then they learn how to make an oral plan. I want to play in the kitchen. Next, then they start to just draw a picture of where they're playing. Then you can start to use the model writing with scaffolded writing, and then the kids will start it. Again, written play planning always starts with pictures. We have to do a lot of drawing with pictures. You can't make detailed sentences if you don't know how to add details to pictures. So just have them draw where they want to go. And pick a small group of children every day and ask them just to use their picture to read it out. So what does this say? What does this picture say? I'm going to blocks. So they start to understand that what they put on paper carries the message. And I'll put this in there too, but you probably have a lot of alphabet sound charts. But that's one way to keep them handy because they can work on that a little bit. Always encouraging the kids to add more details. When they can start to read their plan of where they're actually going, that's when you begin the scaffolded writing, just like you do message of the day. So you can see this one, she got I am, but then the teacher wanted to help and scaffold her for the rest of what that's all she got on there. Now, the best way to do play plans too is if they each have a folder and they can keep it there. So you start the week off with all five of the empty play plans in there. And then later you can staple on 5 more because they can go and look what they did the day before. And it also gives you a really nice way to keep the progression of where they're going. So let me check the time. So I just want to remind you again that I'm talking about writing today, not handwriting. And that in order to be a strong writer, you also have to be a good drawer. You have to have practice, and that's where you build your fine motor anyway. Children should compose their own thoughts and not use sentence starters. But I know that's a big controversy because many curriculums have lots of sentence starters. So that's my opinion. Dictation with model writing is an incredible tool. So if they want to write a story, or I'm thinking of times when kids have making greeting cards, they come over, they drew this and they dictate, and I can just model. I'm just going to model the lines and what they want on the paper. Okay. So I'm going to stop the share here. Let's see first if there's anything else. No. I have a few more minutes, so let me I'm going to keep these in here too. We used this in a session last year. NACI has this really nice resource about what kind of emergent writing materials can you put in all different centers. So this will be a tool for you so that they have opportunity to try writing as they're playing. Let's see what else I got up. Let's see if I have anything else. Okay. All right, we've got a couple minutes here. Let me see what questions we've got, and please start to type if there's any other questions in here. Okay, what is the best time ratio for creating the play plan? So remember, it does take time, and then it takes time away from the playtime. So when I talk about if you've only got 45 minutes and 10 of it is taken up with play planning, that's something you have to try to balance out for yourself. Am I only going to do 3 kids a day and try to get through all the kids and let the other kids go play? So maybe the majority of the group does a quick oral planning. I'm going here, and you 3, it's your turn to work with me. So 3 or 5 or whatever, divide it, because that's, if you've done scaffolded writing, could you unmute and give some tips on that of how you've managed? I'm looking at 3 of you right here. Thank you, Michelle.
You saw me unmute.
Yes, I did.
I was just going to say, we do scaffolded writing every morning is the first thing that we do. We do the message of the day is how we start our day. That's how we set the tone for what we're going to learn. So you can do that virtually or in person, and you can even do it if you're teaching simultaneously, because you're using a whiteboard that everybody can see, and you can model that writing. And then if you want students to have access to that all day, at least in our district, we use Seesaw. So I take a picture of it and I upload it on Seesaw, and they can use it either to try writing on their own, or just to see it, or to help them with their writing later if they just need to refer back to it, or if they want to attach something that's related to it later in the day. So that's just one way to do it every day. It's just the way that you start your day and say, today we will learn about zebras, or today we will learn to write capital letter, whatever you are going to teach that day, that's your main thing. You just start your day like that.
Have you seen students doing scaffolded writing back to you from remotely? So
Yeah, and the way that I've motivated them to try it, or to stay on track with it, is that I then post it on the Seesaw blog, so they can comment on each other's writing and say, like, you did a great job, or I like your hearts, or sometimes they don't comment on the writing at all, but they'll just say something nice that motivates them to keep posting.
Okay, good.
So that's just one way for them to stay on track.
Lisa, I'm going to pick on you too. Now your district uses ARC, American Reading Company. And so they have a different way of doing messages. And we talked about how you adapt. So could you tell how you use scaffolded writing in your day?
So ARC does recommend or give you a message of the day that's 3 or 4 or sometimes 5 sentences. But since that's pretty much all that we talk about in the entire day is that theme, they finish my sentences for me, and they really do remember the themes that we're talking about, like rainforest or desert. But we still do the lines, and we still do counting the words, and we look for the capitals and periods. Like, we still do all of that. It just may be a slightly longer message than what you're proposing.
And Laura, I'm going to go to you next, pick on you now. Any tips you'd give for dealing with the Spanish language?
For the Spanish, just that, separating the syllables has been a big issue in the past, but it's funny because this year with the remote, I feel like since the very beginning, I've started, what I did for the one-to-one wordness at the very beginning is we were doing a remote. I had them get out their connectable cubes. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning, we're talking like the very first weeks, they would do their lines, and then I would say we would count. We did a lot of focusing on that wordness part, and they put cubes on each line as we were reading it. So I took away kind of like they actually did the lines with me, and then I had them put the cubes on each line. Mm-hmm. And that's something I'd never done before, because when we're here in the classroom, it's a lot of materials to be passing out and a lot of but since we were virtual, I knew they had those materials because we sent them home. So I was hoping to keep them engaged by making sure that they had something to do. So I feel like that helped a lot with them. It was a way virtually to help them get that wordness. When, usually we do so much of that at school. Yeah. And I think that now looking back, I think that really helped. We've moved away from that now, obviously, because they all have one-to-one correspondence now. So that was a big help. I'm still waiting to see. I see the most writing. I think, Ashley, your question about it looking remotely. Also, I don't know if you were talking about the play plans, because the play plans has almost been where I've seen the most writing virtually is when we brainstorm what they're going to play, and I have them writing down what they're going to play and draw what they're going to play. And that's almost when I've seen the most writing for them.
Tell us how you
did during virtual.
They're making a play plan, and then they're going to play off camera, or do they play while they're on camera with you? How does that work?
For me, it's all off camera. I specifically have to tell them that they're not to be watching TV. They can't choose to play a video game, not play an app. They can stay in the waiting room because some of them that helps them because I do have like a one-to-one meetings with some of them and at certain times, but the play is all off camera and they post their play picture or they show me their play picture or they can show me a picture or video of what they're playing.
Got it.
So,
and like you talked about the waiting room, I've seen, I asked my granddaughter's kindergarten teacher, well, when you're doing small group reading and you're muting all the kids, how about you unmute? I'll sit there with them and boy, they go get some of their little Polly Pockets and they get their trucks and they played. And they could play with each other if, once, because they've gotten to know each other.
Julie, can I say one more thing?
Please.
I assume you'll agree with me, but if you don't, tell me that. But
okay.
We have an ARC coach that comes and works with our grade level in our school.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that she tells us is they can't write above what they read. So if you're looking at a kindergartner who's reading a repetitive sentence, they really shouldn't or can't be writing above that because they don't have like the model structure to see it in books. I mean, obviously they read alouds and stuff, but their writing kind of matches their reading. So when you're thinking about what you want to push them towards to do next, it should be something that's in the books that they're reading at their level.
I agree with that, especially that children are usually read before they write more complicated sentences. But with scaffolded writing, what you're really doing is teaching the literacy concepts. So because you're teaching some initial sounds, and when you see them get their initial, middle, and ending sound in, they're probably reading it in books by then. So yeah, I agree with the concept. It just takes, this is just a tool for all the background skills.
Right.
Anyone else have questions? Oh, the folder. What other questions do you have? I'm going to, first of all, put my email in the chat to everyone in here. So you have that. Email me at any time because I love this work. So. And if you, I'm trying to think of how to get the folder. You're going to have access to the folder. I haven't finished uploading all of this yet. So I can't go get, well, yes, I can. I can give you the link to the folder, duh, just as kind of empty yet. So hold on a second. Let me go and find that. So this was called Scaffolded Writing. So like I said, there's folders for everything. I wonder if I can just give you the entire folder link. That's the link to the master folder. And now I will give you the link to the specific one. Because there's nothing in it yet. I will be uploading the stuff for the folder as soon as we're done here. So if you give me 10 minutes, it'll all be in there. So let's see here. Any other questions? Thank you. And I'm so happy we had some experienced people. If I could send you gift cards, I would, but I can't. So, but really feel free anytime to, did you get my email in there? Did my email come in there? I'm going to put it in again. All right. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your day. And if you have any questions, I'll stay on while I get a hold of all the things I want to put in the folder. So thank you.
Julie, it was so nice to see you.
You too, and I laughed at your chat to me about how you needed to talk. It's just so, is that your third baby, right?
Yeah, third baby. And I was just thinking of our meetings when I would be, I mean, you don't mind, right? I'll just turn my back.
Not at all. Guys,
So
nice
we're-
to see you.
Yeah, so very good to see you too. And thank you. And your resource that you sent us an email, I appreciate it so much, where it had talked about from California.
Yes,
of
I will
how
put
to
that-
assess.
I will put, wasn't that really good?
It was really good, and they've kind of updated it too. So
good.
I printed those out, and I use those instead now, like for my model, because just gives me like better examples that are more applicable to virtual learning. So
So for those of you that are still on here, I will put that link. There's a link to the kids. It's the kids assessment for kindergarten, but it's California's version. But they've given a lot of ideas of how to collect data and how to do a lot of virtual remote observation.
it's been very helpful. So I appreciate that you still thought of us.
I think of you all the time. So thank you for coming.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, I'm not muted. I'm gonna upload my stuff. I'll mute here.
I just wanted to pop on and say I totally know Jackie. I am an instructor at the Barcode Studio, and when the video, you're muted. I can't hear you. But when I saw her pop up, I was like, I know that person. How do I know that person? How do I know that person? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Jackie from Barcode. And I didn't know that she was doing her master's in this stuff.
Yes.
So that was really cool to see her.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell it. Well, she was actually on here.
Oh, she was.
She pulled herself out during the practice because she didn't want to, she was too embarrassed.
Oh my gosh, she was so cute. I like texted Mel, our studio owner. I was like, I just saw Jackie in my like professional development. It was so cute.
Well, good. I will tell her because she was on here. So she may have scrolled through to see who she knew anybody too. So
that's so funny.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you, Emma.
It was nice to meet you too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.